Hello students, this is where the research methods class really gets interesting in my opinion, and it's where you actually start to see what you're learning put into real applications. This is module 9 and it's on how to do your secondary data research and how to build your literature review, and it includes instructions for completing assignment number 4 as well. So what I've done is I've provided on Blackboard for you a template document. It's a Word document that looks exactly like this, and what it's in 9 parts, and all you need to do is just kind of walk yourself through it. It's not the order of, this is your outline essentially, so what you're starting on right now is your outline, which is worth 25 points out of the 150 points in your research project. This is not the order that you will be writing your research report, obviously. But I want you to do your outline in this order because this is the natural sequence where this is the natural sequence of how the research is actually going to take place because of the unique nature of our use of secondary data. So where we started with part 1, I ask you to briefly summarize in a single short paragraph the secondary data, and if you have found one, include a screenshot of your of an infographic. An infographic is basically a chart or a table or a map or something like that. And it's because we have multimedia journalism now, a lot of what you see in your consumption of media includes these wonderful, fun infographics. And they're also very useful to include in your PowerPoint presentations. So these infographics are going to be important, and this is actually, I'll show you how I use an infographic as my starting point when I do research for myself. And so what I want you to do is do a screen capture of whatever infographic you have, and then you're going to build your research around this data, because before you do a research project based on secondary data, you have to know what data is available. You can't pick a topic and then kill yourself looking for an entire semester for the right kind of data. That's how you do primary research. We're doing secondary research. So in a very, very short summer semester especially, and in a regular semester, we have to be able to find the data really quickly. And finding these infographics is actually the best way that I have found of figuring out what there is out there for data. We're going to build your research around this infographic of the data that you find available. What I need you to actually do when you find this infographic, though, is I need you to drill down through it to make sure that it is from a peer-reviewed source. And that's what we're going to focus on now. This part of the assignment, part 1, is worth 3 points. And the infographic, the hyperlink to the infographic is one of those 3 points. So the way I do this is I go to Google, whichever search engine you want, if it's Bing. And I already knew about this story. I'd heard about it in the media. It's a little bit old now, and so I can't remember exactly where I read about it. So I typed in the search parameters, most racist counties in the United States. And way down here at the bottom is where I found my article. I knew exactly what I was looking for, so I was able to quickly scan through these Google results, these search results, and find the article I was looking for. Now you'll notice on this web page here, I actually have the web filters turned on to web. So you see the little red line underneath web up here. Well, 2 over from that you see images. And so if you click on images, then you get this search output for your search parameters, which is all of these infographics. And then I saw this one up here, which is the one I was looking for. And then I also remembered this one here, and I thought, oh my goodness, they go well together. And I remember reading these stories, and this infographic here was immediately brought back to immediate recall another story that's going to be related. So that's how I do my searches. And I think if you do your search parameters under web first, and then click on images to see what you get as far as infographics go, that's an excellent way to figure out what you have available to you as secondary data, as long as what you do here can be drilled down and traced to peer-reviewed sources. And that's what we're going to focus on next. So the next thing I want to teach you is how to find a journalistic article about this, or an opinion piece, is very useful, because what it does is it provides you with an idea of how this research accomplishes and earns salience. Salience is the idea that it's relevant to you and it's relevant to other people. So it gives it that compelling narrative that says, oh my God, this is important. And so that's what you're after. You're after salience. So this map of the most racist counties in the United States was actually linked through to this article here. This one here was the top article as far as number of hits, and so it was one of the most popular sites. So I just clicked on it, and here's the headline: map that shows how racism is concentrated in areas of the South that had most slavery. And all of this is just my starting point. And so at this point here, I link through it, and then I find the map, which is in there, and this is that infographic, and it shows all the dark red areas where, what the areas with the dark red show is the areas where there were, in the darkest red, more than 80% of the population, 81% or above of the population were black. And this is in 1860. And so what happened in these counties where 81% or more of the population was black was the blacks were incredibly oppressed, because it was through fear that the slaveholders controlled these large numbers of blacks. And it was only through fear that these slaveholders could control the large numbers of blacks. You got to think these slave owners were outnumbered 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to 1. So there were 8 or 9 times as many slaves as there were white people in these counties. And it was only through this really deeply entrenched fear in the 1860s that they were able to control that large population of black. And what this research showed is that now, 153 years later, these counties where the white slaveholders got into the habit of inducing fear in blacks have remained to this day the most racist counties in the United States. And these researchers connected that to the idea that it was only through fear that they controlled the blacks in the first place. So that's what this research said. And then the other story which I found was about the tweets, and what some researcher did on the tweets was, as this headline says, as this headline indicates, the racist map of America. Tweets analyzed for offensive keywords reveal the most bigoted parts of the U.S. and which people are the most hated. So this map looks like this, and what is really important to you is that this is an interactive map, and it's a very useful map, and it will probably complement my research project if the map here has a good overlay over top of the other map. And I immediately saw, well, it's not the best overlay, it's indicative, but here in the South, the tweets are as much up in Indiana and Illinois, and oh my goodness, look over here in Idaho, and well, the Pacific Northwest isn't even really good. And so this may not work for my research project, but what I want you to do is but this map became very, very integral for assignment number 4. So we're going to return to this map and how to cite this map for research in assignment number 4, because I know some of you are going to find maps like this that you're going to want to use. And in 5 semesters of teaching this class, I have yet to discover somebody who really knew how to cite a map like this properly. So that's part of assignment number 4. So we now have, at this point in a research project, if this was my research project and I was going to use these infographics, I now have 4 citations that I already need to make. I have the News Online, the Daily Mail Online, which is a British newspaper. I have the map, which was done by peer-reviewed sources. I have the Daily Mail Online article about the Twitters, and I have another map, which is from another university. So now I've already been through, in a matter of 10 minutes, literally in a matter of 10 minutes, I've already got 4 citations that I probably will want to use somehow, some way, even if just for a 1-sentence citation. If I make a claim out of any of this material, I've got to cite it. So potentially I already have 4 citations that I need to make before I go off and have lunch. And if I go off and have lunch, I'm going to come back and I'm going to go, oh my goodness, I totally forgot where that was. So what I'm telling you now is, at this point in time, stop and put down these citations. If you think you're going to use them, even if you may delete them later, take them down now. It's very, very important before you go forward, because otherwise you're going to be on your way and you're going to be often forgetting about where you found these, and then you're going to lose marks if you cite something in your research project without knowing where you actually claimed that from. You'll remember it. I'll guarantee you that you'll remember it, but you won't remember to cite it. You'll just make the claim. That's just the way beginning researchers always are, and because I was like that too. So that's why I'm telling you now, write down, as you go through this, do your citations, and that's why assignment number 4 is like that. So this is actually part 10, doing the citations. We've only touched part 1, but immediately now we're going to cite part 10 of your research project outline, because it's important that you start doing these citations now. So, how to do the citations, now that we're there, let's learn about this. My absolute favorite site is done by Radford University. Here's the URL, libguides.radford.edu, and you click here for the undergraduate citations. You don't need to go to the graduate citations, that's a little more complicated and I'm not going to expect that of you. So APA 6th for Radford University undergraduates. APA means American Psychiatric Association, and the 6th version of it, that's what APA 6th means. So that's where I want you to go. Now, how do we do it? If we start at the Radford link here, and you click on this APA 6th link for undergraduates, you'll come up with this page here, and then you'll be able to find this tab right here that says I want to cite ... Number 1, start here. And so we are now going to cite this daily news article here. So number 2, we want to cite. Step number 1, start here. Step number 2, we want a website citation, so click on websites. Point number 3, when you get to Radford, you'll immediately see that what they want in this citation is an author. So then you go down here to number 4 and you think, oh my goodness, on this Twitter story we do not have an author. So then you come back over here and you scan down here on this page until you find point number 5 here. Find a citation format that's going to be a close match for you. In this case here it says there is no personal author, but there is an organization behind this citation. So this is one we're going to use right here, step number 5. Step number 6, what I want you to pay close attention to on step number 6 here is the idea that you also, while you're here, need to learn how to do the in-text citation. The in-text citation is what you put inside the brackets in your actual research project that sends people to the back section of your research project in the references section. So the in-text citation is critically important. A lot of people forget to do them properly, especially when it gets weird and unusual where you don't have an author. So in this case here, since we don't have an author, pay really close attention to how to do the in-text citation, because it's going to drive you crazy later. Now, as it relates to citing this infographic, there was a lot of data behind this infographic. Somebody somewhere did a lot of research to get that data. And so we've got to give them credit for doing all of that research and creating such a wonderful, easy to consume infographic. So find your infographic. Number 2, navigate to the source. So if you go into Google under images and you click on an image that you like, you have an option, you have 2 options. Visit the page where the infographic was used, or just view the image. Now if you're going to scab the image off the internet, you'll view the image and then copy the JPEG file and put that into your PowerPoint. So that's how you actually get the image to put in your PowerPoint, but if you actually want to drill through and find out who did the research, you want to click on Visit Page. Number 3, you look for the journalist's link to where it came from. So as I read through that story, and you go, aha, here it is, I see the hyperlink, and it says, read more of what Blackwell and his colleagues found and their explanation for how the slavery effect is able to persist into the 21st century here. And here is in red, so you know there's a hyperlink, so you click on it. What that takes you to is point number 4 up here, and there is the University of Rochester page. Make sure you can trace it to an academic source. If you clicked on this here link and you didn't end up going to an academic source, you've got to keep drilling down and drilling down, because you can't use this infographic if it is not academically peer-reviewed. So here we ended up going to the University of Rochester, which is really important. So if you find it through to there, read the article, what is written about it there, find the names of the researchers, which is point number 5, and finally point number 6, find out where the researchers published their findings. And in this case here it says the findings are reported in a working paper. Oh my gosh. It's just a working paper. It's not in a peer-reviewed journal. What do you do with it? Well, a working paper still got presented at a conference, and if it got presented at a conference, it was peer-reviewed. So I will count a working paper or a conference paper as peer-reviewed, even if it didn't go in a scholarly journal. So in this case here, it's a working paper. Let's click on that and see where we go. So where that takes us is point number 7 here, and you finally found the working paper. but it is as of yet unpublished, as I mentioned. But we've got a working paper, we've got a PDF file. So here it is up in this URL here. You can see that it is part of an organization. So now we go to the Radford APA 6th format webpage and find out what do we do with this. So since it is a conference paper, it still qualifies as peer-reviewed. So let's click on scholarly journal and scholarly journal articles on the Radford page and see where that takes us. So when we click on that page there, click on that link there, we come up with point number 8. We recognize that we do not have a DOI and we have no page numbers. So we scan down through that section of the Radford LibGuides until we find something that probably is going to approximate it. There's no DOI and there are no page numbers. So that's how we're going to cite this paper here. Down at the bottom you'll also notice what to do if there's lots of authors. Well, in this case here there are 3 authors, and so you can have up to 6 authors before you really have to alter how authors are presented. But pay close attention down here if you have multiple authors, how to do particularly the in-text citation, because the in-text citations are going to be different when there are lots of authors, and you'll have to figure out how to deal with that, and that tells you how to deal with that. Government reports are unique as well. On the Radford LibGuides, they tell you how to handle government reports. Some of the best infographics out there are going to come from government sources, because anything that researchers did at an academic level with a government grant, that data was done with the intent of sharing it with the government. So some of the best research out there has been funded by government grants, and it ends up being readily available for free, including the data files, through a government web page. So if you've got a government report, you'll probably end up getting, several of you, probably more than half of you will end up getting a government report as a good infographic for your research project. So how to cite them? That's a very interesting, very different process, because there's typically not an author associated with a government report. So that's very unique. And so in this case here, I'm going to have you, this is part of assignment number 4. When they were talking about the 1860 census as part of that most racist counties in the United States, as part of that, the beginning point was the 1860 census. So we go through and you link on it, and I found this through one of the hyperlinks, and it took me to Random Samplings, the official blog of the U.S. Census Bureau. This is an official government report. And it says down here, right here at the bottom, this is what they cited: the 1860 census, taken before the start of the Civil War, recorded nearly 4 million slaves in the nation. Very, very useful statistic, and one powerful sentence, but if you use that one powerful sentence in your research project, you've got to cite the source. In this case, it was a government report, and so you're going to want to cite it properly. Okay, worst case scenario on how to handle citations is when it really doesn't fit any of the above. So here on the Radford LibGuides bottom choice, it says I can't find my example. It will take you to this link here, I can't find my example, and what do you do now? And it walks you through how to make your best guess. So follow this format instead of just guessing wildly. Give this an educated guess by following this format here. Author, bracket, date of publication, end bracket, period, title of document, format of the document if unusual. Was it a working paper? Was it a conference paper? Was it a web video, YouTube video? Those do have sources, and there are examples on the Radford Guide how to do those. So it's going to have to be something really unusual, but make your best guess. And then put in there somehow the publishing or the retrieval data, how I could retrieve the data. Typically going to be a hyperlink at this point. Now, part 2 of your assignment, that's all on part 1. That's how to do part 1 and how to get through it and how to start this research process. Because that's going to allow you to find that article, that research theme that's going to be deeply passionate inside you, and you're going to feel driven to find something like that. Because that's what you consume in media, and that's why it works for me. But part number 2 now. Briefly summarize in a single short paragraph a news and/or opinion media story that highlights your research problem. This media link should not be a peer-reviewed article. Important, should not be a peer-reviewed article. This media story or blog is meant to be something that everyday people would read or to use an academic term, something that gives the research problem salience. Now when you actually get your PDF file or your Word document downloaded, if it's up on the screen, salience has a hyperlink. It'll take you to a proper definition so that you understand the term. This is the second of at least 3 required citations. So now we've already done your first citation, which was the peer-reviewed source that supports your infographic. Now we're going to do a citation for this opinion piece that gives it salient. What makes this compelling? Why did it attract your attention? For the same reason it'll probably attract the attention of an audience that you're writing your research for. So we want to cite this opinion piece. It's not a peer-reviewed journal piece, it's something that gives it salience. So on my link through all of the other sources, I really found the most salient piece of information coming from the University of Rochester cover story, where it introduced the research of those academics from their institution. So I'm going to skip the Daily Mail article, the Mail Online, and I'm going to use this example here from their opening paragraph to quote my non-peer-reviewed source as the article, as the paragraph that gives it the most salience. Part number 3. Identify your research problem. You must compress the problem into a maximum of 4 sentences, and you must use research vocabulary that you have learned from the textbook. You get 4 points for this if you identify your research problem really well with research vocabulary. Part 4, proposed title. It can be up to 15 words long and use a colon. Once you start doing your research, look at the article titles that other people have used, and we'll watch and see how often a colon is used in the titles of their papers. So I want you to follow those examples, and you get 2 points for getting a really good title. Notice that we didn't start with the title. The title is part 4 of your research outline, of your research project outline. And so because of how we are following the natural investigative nature of researchers, the title doesn't come first, and the title comes way down in the process. Part 5, briefly summarize in a single short paragraph a second peer-reviewed journal article that addresses your research problem. This is the third of 3 required citations in your outline. 3 points if it's a good match to the research problem that you explained in part 3. So here I want you to go to FAU's library webpage, and right on the landing page you'll see Searchwise, and it's at fau.edu/library, and I want you to use this source here or something that you trust equally as well to find your second peer-reviewed article. What I really like about Searchwise is that I can pull these screen captures off, and you can all find exactly identical screens when you do your research. So it's easier for me to teach to the Searchwise mechanism. So put your search terms into Searchwise, and this is the first set of results that I got. This is already after I've already picked 4 search parameters, trying to narrow it down. I narrowed it down by peer review because this source has to be peer reviewed. So click on peer review, that'll narrow it down. Click on journal articles. That will narrow it down, in this case here, to 4,641 or something like that. And then by discipline, I picked 2 disciplines because political science or social welfare might work. And that narrowed it down to 3,000 in this category and 1,000 in this category. And then I thought, you know what, it's still way too broad, so I tried to narrow it down by date. And so I moved this sliding bar way over here, and I typed in, or you can do it by typing in the date here. In this case 2012, January 1st, 2012. So I just wanted to find something that's been done since January 2012. And it still was way too broad. So what I ended up doing is I ended up typing in new search parameters, and I typed in structural dynamics of racism. And in this case here, journal articles are now down to 487. And I scrolled down, and lo and behold, right off the bat, I found something that was really appropriate in my opinion. I hover over the title. When you just hover the mouse over top of the title, this screen comes up on the side, and it allows you to read the abstract and allows you to see where it's from and the date and the author, and you can make a decision just by hovering. You don't even have to click to go down to it, just by hovering. Now one thing that's important before you actually get these articles open to you is you're going to have to actually log into the fau.edu/library domain if you're searching from home, because if you are at home doing this search, it's not going to let you in unless you have your OWL card number on file. So the very first time that you do a search through Searchwise from your home computer, you'll probably have to have your OWL card, and it asks you for your birth month, birth year, I think, in order as a PIN number. So then you get to this page here. Now, part 6, I want you to do a diagrammatic model. It's only worth 1 point. By now you should be really, really good at the diagrammatic model, and you don't have to kill yourself doing it, but it's very important that part 6 that you do a diagrammatic model, because in part 7 I ask you to specify your unit of analysis. And how will that represent the organization of the operationalization? How are you going to operationalize your research? Well, without this diagrammatic model, it's really, really tough to operationalize your research, because you really can't identify a unit of analysis until you've got a diagrammatic model. Also, the diagrammatic model, when it identifies your dependent variable, allows you to identify your independent variables. And there's 3 points here for identifying at least 2 more variables as the independent, and or the third variable would be the intervening or independent variable. Part number 9, state a first attempt at your hypothesis. It's important to note, start with your null hypothesis, remember assignment number 3, and then state an alternative hypothesis. And note that I will be extremely lenient on this. Like I say, there's a 99% chance that I will need to provide a recommendation back to you to help you improve your hypothesis, or your hypotheses if it's plural. So don't lose any sleep over getting this the right first time. Just you'll get full marks just for getting your idea across to me. Even if it's really poorly worded, you'll get full marks for communicating your idea. So remember, go back to assignment number 3 and figure out the best way to do the null hypothesis, and then don't state the opposite, state a claim that you think you would prove what you want to, your research problem, as you identified in step 2. Part number 10, your references, okay? We've already talked about how to get that. There's only 2 points available for your references, and the points are only available for being APA style. As part of your peer-reviewed article number 1, and your journalistic article, and your peer-reviewed article number 2, those points include getting the citation correct, as far as making a good citation. These 2 points here are fully awarded just for being an APA style. So if you even if you got the citation to a degree where I would be able to find the article, if you didn't do it in APA style, you're going to lose points at this part 10. So your first look, what I do, because 25 points is a lot of points to blow on a class like this. So if you want me to get a first look at your outline before you actually submit it for me to grade, get it to me by 11:59 p.m. on Thursday, June 26th. That's the day I fly home from, actually, oh geez, I'm going to have to adjust these dates. I fly home from Romania and actually arrive late on the 27th. So these dates will probably be moved off. But for all intents and purposes, get your first look to me so that it's on my computer when I arrive home. And I will immediately do, the first thing that I'll do is I'll take a look at those. I handwrite on them my ideas for fixing it, and probably the number 1 fix will be how to reword your hypothesis. I scan them back in and I email them back to you as a PDF file. And then as soon as you get them, I give you 48 hours. So from 48 hours after you get the document back from me, your first look document, you have to have your final outline back to me, and I will grade that one based out of 25 points, out of the 150 points for the research project. So ignore Monday the June 30th and just imagine 48 hours after you get the first look back to me, if you gave me a first look. Okay, for assignment number 4, so let me start with question number 1. As noted previously in this lecture here, as part of this Geography of Hate research project into Twitter hashtags, the researchers from Humboldt State University in Northern California mapped out geotagged hateful tweets in the United States. And here's the URL. So if you've actually got this on your computer, open as a Word document, you can hold the Control key and click on the hyperlink, and it will actually take you to this map that you see here. This was the hashtags, the geotagged hashtags map. And if you notice right down here in the bottom right hand corner of the map, so the map will be huge, it'll cover your entire screen on your web browser, but in the very bottom right hand corner, which is where almost all of the citations for an infographic will appear, every reputable infographic out there will have some kind of citation. So if you notice down in the bottom right hand corner here, in the bottom right hand corner of the map, there is a line of blue text that says details about this map. So the details about this map will take you to a hyperlink, and there you'll see Dr. Monica Stevens' name with a hyperlink embedded in her name. So that will allow you to drill down in, find the author, the author of record for this research. So the map itself is not going to be what you need in your citation. The actual research is where you want to go to. So you actually have to drill down, find the author, and so also within this window inside the map that comes up when you click on the details about this web page, if you scroll down to the bottom of that one, so you can scroll through here and move it up, and you'll get down to the bottom of that, and what you'll find is that it says right at the bottom, read more about the research and methods behind this project at www.floatingsheep.org. Unfortunately, that takes you to a blog, and if you're familiar with a blog, the most recent blog post is what's on the landing page of the blog. But luckily, as shown here, when you land at the floatingsheep.org domain, they have a widget over here with the title Top Floating Sheep Map. And the very top map in this widget is the Mapping Hateful Tweets hyperlink. So if you click on that, then you actually get to go to this domain here, which I've given you, www.floatingsheep.org/2012/11/mapping racist tweets in response to HTML. Okay, so that is where you actually need to go. So that's how much work it takes to get to one citation when you go through this mechanism. But this is what our reality is nowadays, because there's so much information out there on the web that if you're going to get to it, it's wonderful and it's amazing information, but sometimes you have to really go through this drill down mechanism in order to find it. Now, I've taken a long time explaining how this is done, but in reality, once you get into the idea of using these hyperlinks and you recognize that you're looking for the peer-reviewed source, this entire process probably took me about 90 seconds. But it took me a lot longer to explain it because I want you to understand how quickly you can actually make your way through. So these yellow arrows here tell you when you get to these screens, once you see these screens, look for these sites here where the yellow arrows are highlighting the hyperlinks. Go through, practice finding all of this material yourself, and I need you to make this citation here. When you actually get to the research that was authored by Dr. Monica Stevens, that's what I want you to cite. So that's how you do question number 1 of assignment number 4. Question number 2, 5 more points. This one here is an exercise to actually have you cite the article which I illustrated earlier in this video that I arrived at through the FAU/library searchwise function. So the article here is the one that I indicated that you would hover over with your mouse, and this is what came up on the right hand side. So this hyperlink over here is the actual peer-reviewed journal article that I want you to cite for question number 2, and it's worth 5 points. The title of this was The Pedagogy of Meaning of Racism, Reconciling a Discordant Discourse, and the author's last name was Hoyt. And it does have a DOI. So when you get to the Radford LibGuide, you will go for a scholarly journal article with a DOI number and an author, and that's the proper way to cite it. In case you have any trouble with the DOI, it starts with 10.1093 la 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 la. So that to make sure you get the DOI number. But that's how I want you to cite this one for 5 points. Once again, 1 point of the 5 points is for properly typing on a line prior to your citation what the in-text citation would look like. Question number 3. Let's presume that you wanted to cite the fact that before the Civil War broke out in 1861, the 1860 census reported that there were nearly 4 million slaves in the nation. Here's the hyperlink that I showed you earlier in the video. This is the actual link in case you haven't got it up now in front of you. I want you to properly cite Random Samplings, the official blog of the U.S. Census Bureau, as the supporting source for this tidbit of information. Once again, 1 point out of the 5 is for properly typing on a line prior to the citation what the in-text citation would look like. Here is the Random Samplings official webpage. You'll be able to see the URL when you actually go there on your own. And here is the information that drove us there in the first place, the 1860 census, where U.S. Census Bureau made the claim for us, so that we don't have to make it without citing it. We can say they said it, they gave us the number. 4 million slaves were in the nation in 1860. Question number 4 is fascinating, and this is the one that will drive you crazy. And I know you will, I can guarantee that you will find something that will be just like question number 4 in your research project. Question number 4 states that, in my, speaking personally from my own experience, In my search for infographics that would be great in my PowerPoint slides, just this video, these PowerPoints that I put together for this video, I found these infographics over here. And really useful information and really well presented, and they would be ideal for a slide. But as it says down here in the bottom paragraph, it is important to note that even I had a rough time picking a good, reliable source based on a 5-minute timed research exercise. So I spent 5 minutes trying to properly source these to a credible, reliable, and valid, peer-reviewed scholarly institution. And I think it may be out there, but the guy who actually put them up on the web page was a site called examiner.com, and it was a journalistic opinion type piece, and he put a few citations in there. So what I want you to do is I want you to go to this hyperlink yourself. So once again, if this Word document is up on your computer, hold the control key, hit the click, and it'll take you to this article where I found these and several other infographics. And in there is the author, that I believe there's a hyperlink to the author. There's a hyperlink to the nonprofit organization, which may be a research institution. I wasn't quite sure. It talks about a university or an academic source, but the hyperlink really didn't go there. So what I want you to do is, I want you to set the timer for 5 minutes. When you get this web page open here, I want you to look at your watch and say, okay, it is now 20 after. I am going to work on this until 25 after. I don't want you to spend a long time on this. This is only worth 5 points of an assignment. So in the grand scheme of things, this whole thing is worth less than 1% of your final grade. And so it's not important that you find this source. It's important that in 5 minutes you actually come up with something that is your best guess. So there's no wrong answer to this question. What I will be grading you on is how you justify the citation that you decide in the end to make in support of these infographics. So I need you to presume or pretend that you're going to use one of these infographics, and you've got to come up with some kind of a citation. Spend 5 minutes, give me your best citation possible out of all of the hyperlinks that are embedded in this article. And that's it. That's the end of assignment number 4. It must be submitted prior to Monday, June 9th. That is 1 week from today, the day that I put this up and live. And it will be graded out of 20 points. So 4 questions, 5 points each. Good luck, and I look forward to your submissions. Thanks a lot.